Bill Barber, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks very much for having me, mate.
Bill, I believe you grew up in country Victoria. How did you get your music growing up? Was it radio, TV, parents' record collection?
Yeah, so my dad was a massive blues fan, so we we didn't really watch much TV at home. It really got turned on. We just had blues records on all the time, or cassette tapes, or whatever he had at the time. And yeah, it was a bit of a shock going to school and realizing that there was different kinds of music. Because I just yeah, all I'd heard was Buddy Guy and Howlin' Wolf and Robert Johnson and you know all of that kind of stuff for my whole life. Um, so yeah, it was definitely a good base for what I do now.
Yeah. Oh, was there one particular album that stands out to you?
Um, I think it was yeah, I think it's really Howlin' Wolf's chess records
Yeah.
stuff in general that really stood out to me when I was younger, and the guitar playing on that as well. I started on harmonica, and I wanted to learn how to play the harmonica, and um, as soon as I started listening to that stuff, I didn't realize at the time it was Hubert Sumlin on guitar,
Yeah.
which I found out a little bit later. So I didn't realize that Hubert Sumlin was probably one of my biggest influences very early on.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, it was Hallam's voice and his harmonica playing and Hubert Sumlin's guitar playing that definitely were the front runners,
so,
and really just that whole Chicago sound.
yeah, at what point did you actually get a guitar and start playing?
I got my first guitar when I was 5, and I was really lucky actually. My primary school music teacher was a bloke named Shane Crowley. And, he was yeah he wasn't the greatest player in the world, but he was the best teacher I've ever had. He just had a way with kids, and he had a way to help kids understand music. And thankfully for me, he was a blues fan as well. So he was a guy that taught me how to go da 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 da, and like he was a guy that taught me a 12 bar and all of those kind of basic things. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. I still remember um that kind of early on thing, being able to, it was like I unlocked a code.
Yeah.
It was like this kind of secret thing that people had, and it's like I struggled with it for weeks and weeks, and then I'd finally get something, and then I realized that, oh no, that's what they do in that song. And so that really helped me be able to learn, be able to sit down and transcribe stuff and learn songs off records and cassettes and things too.
Uh, so further down the track, you were playing guitar. You moved to Bendigo then, a little closer to the action, I suppose. Were you chasing the music and more gigs? Was that
I
the reason?
was, yeah. I played the first Bendigo Blues Festival, and because I grew up in the Yarra Valley. I stayed in Warburton for most of my life until I was a teenager, and um, yeah, I moved up to Bendigo pretty much immediately after the first Bendigo Blues Festival, because yeah, my dad took me up there, and because I was 15 at the time, and we just fell in love with the place, and it was having this real kind of um it was having this real kind of renaissance at the time as well. Um it was probably the best blues scene in Victoria um at the time. There was no other town, well, really, like it was on par, maybe better at times than Melbourne. um there was no other town you could go and watch 5 or 6 blues bands playing in one weekend, or sometimes in even one night. We've got a whole lot of pubs and a massive blues scene. And my dad and I, being country people, we didn't really want to brave the city life, so it was a good middle ground for us as well.
You play a pretty fiery brand of rock and roll guitar. Are you into the Texan blues guys, Stevie Ray?
Yeah, what as far as electric playing goes, Freddie King's probably my favorite electric player. And yeah, I guess because that I guess that kind of came about because I was strictly acoustic up until I was about 18. I barely touched electric guitars. I had them, um, but yeah, I was very much an acoustic player. I really wanted to learn how to finger pick. I wanted to learn how to play like Jeff Atchison. I want to learn how to play like Lloyd Spiegel. A bit later on, I want to learn how to play like Dutch. And yeah, I really didn't pay much mind to electric guitar. It was also because the gigs that I was allowed to play and the gigs that I was allowed to go to were all in cafes. So it was either solo acoustic stuff or duo stuff or things like that. So I really only saw acoustic guitar until I was old enough to go into clubs and stay out late and that kind of thing. So that kind of probably around 18 or 19, I started getting really into my electric playing. And the yeah, I guess that's what birthed the Revelators early on. That was my first kind of foray into the whole blues rock thing rather than just the straight up blues thing. But the thing with that was I was taking a hard rock drummer and a funk bass player and trying to make them play blues. And so it ended up quite an aggressive sound.
Yeah.
And it kind of got louder and louder as things progressed and more aggressive as things progressed. So it's I guess it's just kind of the way I play now. It's everything's on 10 and
Yeah. You mentioned your original guitar teacher. You mentioned a couple of local Australian blues guys just now. Were any of those actual mentors to you along the way?
yeah, I think well Jeff Atchison and Lloyd Spiegel are probably um yeah, they're probably the biggest reason that I'm doing this today. And I'm doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be able to do this without their guidance and their input. Um, it was very little I guess very little guitar playing from them. It was very much kind of sitting down and learning the business side of things and learning how do I get gigs and how do I keep gigs and the travel side of things and learning the reality of stuff, which is if you're going to be a professional independent musician, it's an office job. Not a lot of kids realize that, and I definitely didn't realize it either. I wanted to play music because I didn't want an office job. Um, but yeah, it was I every time I went to one of those gigs, that was a guitar lesson, and every time they invited me to their house, that was a business lesson. So yeah, I'm very very grateful to those guys.
Yeah. In 2018, you won the local blues challenge and won your way to Memphis. What was that experience like?
It was pretty nerve-wracking, to be honest. I was 19, so it was pretty full on. It was my first time on a plane. It was Melbourne to LAX straight away, but it was um yeah, it was really eye-opening to see the level of musicianship over there, especially in Memphis and Nashville and and Muscle Shoals especially. That blew my mind because there was that there's a whole lot of bluegrass players there, and then there's a whole lot of southern rock players there, and both of those things were things I'd never really delved into too much. So hearing that kind of, hearing those two kind of branch outs was, that was a very big thing for me.
Yeah. You won again this year, this time with a band. What lessons did you learn from the first trip, do you think, that you'll take into the next one?
I think the biggest lesson I learned is if you're going somewhere unfamiliar and you're not too sure about it, take your best friends with you. That's that's exactly why I did it with the band this year. I guess I came to a bit of a bit of an impasse musically um, early this year, late last year. The Revelators had just finished up, and I was I had my first kind of real day job ever, and I was just starting to learn that. And I was kind of letting my music and my creativity fall by the wayside a little bit. And so I called some of my best friends and the best musicians I know, and we got into a room, and it was one of those kind of magical moments where as soon as we started playing our first song, we we had the tingles. We knew that it was going to be something. So um, yeah, by the time I think we've been together probably 4 or 5 months now. Yeah, and we're going into record our first EP next month. We're doing a live EP before we head off.
Yep.
And we'll hopefully have a full length album by the time we get back.
Yeah. Speaking of EPs, you've got one coming out tomorrow with Johnny and Ben, the Blues Roulette guys.
Absolutely.
How did you come to know Ben and Johnny?
I've got they're kind of I've got the blues scene's very tight knit, especially in Melbourne. So I've got a lot of blues uncles. Yeah, yeah. I think the first time I played in Muddies, I would have been 17 or 18. I remember having to get somebody to drive me because I didn't have my license yet. But yeah, from then on, Ben asked me to come down to Muddies probably 3 or 4 times a year, and I've watched his I've watched his music and this community that he's built around this whole Blues Roulette thing evolve. I think he's been doing it nearly 10 years now. And it's turned into something just massive and really important for the Melbourne community and the Australian blues community as well. So I'm really happy, and I'm really excited that I'm able to do something with them and release it.
Yeah, it's a 5-track EP. How were the songs chosen?
So that's the thing with Blues Roulette. You don't choose songs. You come in. There's no charts. There's no safety nets. Ben and Johnny don't know the songs before I come in. Yeah, I walked in and played a couple of riffs, gave him a brief rundown of what was happening. I think 3 of the 5 were recorded on the first take. Yeah, the others I forgot the words, I think. But yeah, it's very raw. It's very it sounds exactly like what it is. It's 3 really good mates, playing music that we really love in a shed together.
Yeah.
And it's
the guitar that's in the clip, the Les Paul cutaway. Is that your main guitar?
That was my main Revelators guitar. So I had that. I've still got it. It's in a case under my bed at the moment. But yeah, I had that for 5 years. Yeah, I think the aggressiveness of that sound. I've got it set up with a Peter Green mod, so the middle position is out of phase. So I can get those really nice kind of Fleetwood Mac tones and things if I like. And the bridge pickup is wound down, so I can kind of get that Telecaster sound out of it. So it's a real jack of all trades, that guitar. But with the songs that we were writing with the holding cell, I needed something a little bit warmer, and I needed something a little bit I needed something that sat in the mix a little bit better, because I'm playing a lot less guitar solos these days because I've got Sean Klinger on guitar. So if you got Klinger in any band, you don't really need to play too many solos. He's got that covered. So I bought myself a 335, and that's my main guitar for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
You've got 4 dates coming up with Blues Roulette, starting off October 13 in Emerald. Is it just you 3 guys? Will there be any guests along the way?
It'll be just us 3 tomorrow night. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but yeah, on the 13th in Emerald, it'll be just us 3. The Melbourne launch at the Catfish, I have no idea what Ben's got planned. I have no idea who's going to show up. There's usually quite a few musos in the audience that come and hang out and catch up. So yeah, who knows? There's a bunch of microphones there. There's a bunch of amps there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Apart from the Blues Roulette gigs and the EP, what else have you got coming up for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we've got So we've got a couple of fundraisers with the holding cell to help us get over to Memphis. That'll be there'll be one in Melbourne. That'll be November 12th at the Flemington Bowls Club where the MBAS resides. That'll be with Anna Shanti as well, the solo duo winner. And then November 17th at the Golden Vine in Bendigo for a bit of a hometown show.
Yeah. So what's the grand plan for Bill Barber?
just keep writing songs, mate. You know, hopefully people like those songs. Hopefully people listen to them. Hopefully they get something out of them. Yeah, the grand plan at the moment is to keep these boys I've got in the holding cell for as long as possible, because I'm really, they've lit a fire under me, these guys, and I hope I lit a fire under them. So yeah, just stick with those guys and see what kind of things we can create.
Well, Bill, it's been great to catch up, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks very much for having me, Greg. Appreciate it, mate.